What if I told you the largest wealth transfer in history is happening right before your eyes, and you're not prepared for it? The catastrophic economic collapse that America has been orchestrating is only beginning. As global stock markets implode and countless people are driven to desperation, those who mocked me are now asking, when can we buy the dip? I warned you about this scenario months ago. This crisis is just getting started. Look around you, everyone is frantically selling their stocks. No matter how much you've already lost, no matter how cheaply you think you're selling, it's all relative. When the entire world is slashing prices, you might offer to sell at 50 cents, but someone else will sell for 40. Ask yourself, who's more numerous right now, the sellers dumping their shares, or buyers like us? For capital investors preparing to buy the dip, current prices are still too expensive. When will prices be low enough? The answer is simple: when everything appears dead, when people who never bought stocks before are also desperately losing money, when all assets are practically given away to us for free. Yes, you heard correctly. If you're willing to peel back the layers of this game, you'll recognize its brutality. The endpoint of this collapse is the starting point for us to step in and buy the bottom. That's precisely when the financial crisis unfolds. At that moment, the assets millions of people spent their lives accumulating will transfer to the capitalist class. This is what we call the great transfer of wealth. The Buffett signal. Have you noticed what the world's greatest investors have been doing while everyone else was celebrating market highs? If you've followed my videos, you've noticed that Warren Buffett began selling American stocks last year and holding enormous cash reserves. Back then, the stock market was still soaring due to Trump's re-election, and countless people laughed at Buffett, claiming he was too old and had lost his touch. Those same people ended up buying American stocks at their peak. Now, with just one tax policy move by the US government, those who bought at the top are suffering. Meanwhile, Buffett has emerged as the biggest winner, not just because he sold stocks at their highest prices, but because of what he sold. His selling pattern revealed the entire script of this game. What do I mean? Last year, many didn't understand why Buffett sold Apple stock, the company he once held the most. Now you can clearly see which country America is raising import taxes on the most: China. And where are iPhones, Apple laptops, and headphones primarily manufactured? China. This means if Apple wants to sell China-made phones in America, they'll face astronomical taxes. Simply put, Americans wanting to buy phones designed by their own country will pay more than other nations. The result? Apple stock plummeted 35%. Now you see that Buffett not only avoided the stock market crisis but sold before Trump even took office, specifically the stocks most severely impacted by the new tax policy. What does this tell us? It shows that regardless of who became president, the script and outcome were predetermined. The tax increase is just one tool to ignite this crisis. The global wealth transfer. What's the endgame of this crisis? Think about it. Why would the wealthiest people in the world all make the same moves at the same time? Consider this: Buffett also sold Bank of America stock, his second largest asset holding. What does that suggest? If Buffett's asset selling is just coincidence, why did Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon Musk also sell their company stocks last year? Is that also coincidence? If all of these are coincidences, why is Li Ka-shing eager to sell ports and extract cash right now? Many say he's selling ports due to political risk, but is that really true? Let me tell you, in the first round, American capitalists played the interest rate game. In the second round, they're playing the tariff game. The strategy remains the same: pumping global money into America, causing worldwide economic and asset collapse. Afterward, these capitalists will gradually buy the bottom. The difference is that interest rates extracted money from the entire world, while tariffs forced the whole world to suffer losses. What's most important is how we should position ourselves in this second round. If you don't want to become a victim of this asset landscape, or even hope to climb to a higher class, you can follow my channel. I'll continue sharing more information. If you're afraid you'll forget what you've heard and waste your time, you can like this video so it automatically stays in your playlist for you to return to and follow anytime. The mechanism behind the collapse. Have you ever wondered where trillions of dollars go when they seemingly evaporate from the market overnight? Let's address the core issue. After America raised tariffs, what actually happened? First, the American stock market collapsed, right? Most people only see that the stock market dropped sharply but don't consider where that money went. How much money evaporated from the market in the past 2 days? $6.6 trillion. What does evaporated mean? It means disappearing without a trace. Have you ever wondered why $6.6 trillion could suddenly vanish from the stock market? In the stock market, when some lose, others must gain, correct? When markets decline, those holding stocks lose money. People who bought high are now at a loss. Conversely, those who sold high and bought back low, the short sellers, make money. So who's holding stocks now? Recently, everyone has seen clearly, isn't it your friends, or perhaps yourself? It's the retail investors. In my previous video, I mentioned that by conservative estimates, at least 80% of people holding American stocks are retail investors or foreign investors. In other words, most of that $6.6 trillion that evaporated from the stock market is money from retail and foreign investors. Simply put, this money transferred from retail and foreign investors' pockets to short sellers. So who's shorting the market? Besides shorting entities like Soros that I mentioned in my previous video, who else? Who knew insider information about the tariffs? Couldn't they short in advance? At the moment of the steepest collapse, Trump posted a status saying now was the best time to buy stocks, essentially telling everyone to rush in and buy the dip. Then just hours later, he publicly announced a 90-day pause on the tariff policy. As a result, the free-falling American stock market immediately rebounded. It suddenly bounced back. What does this mean? Does the American stock market now rise or fall based on Trump's flip-flopping statements or policy changes? Can you make money just by having Trump tell you when to buy and sell? Could there be insider trading happening? America's financial problems. If you've followed my channel, you know what urgent problems the American government is trying to solve. First, they're out of money for expenditures. You can clearly see the US Treasury is nearly empty. If the Treasury runs out of money, the government will shut down. Second, no one is buying US government bonds anymore. You can see that since 2021, US bonds have been sold off in large volumes and continuously declining in price. Put simply, nobody wants to lend America money anymore. So how do they solve the first problem, the Treasury having no spending money? Very simple. If the stock market can surge or plummet based on Trump's words or policies, then American stocks are essentially the government's ATM machine. Whenever the Treasury runs out of money, they can deliberately create market volatility to make money. First create a crisis, short the market, take the money, then push the market back up to lure retail investors, the green grass or F0 investors, back in. This entire price-dropping process must happen quickly, sharp but not prolonged. If it falls too deeply, retail investors will be completely wiped out and the market won't recover. You might think what I'm saying is absurd, but these aren't my words, they're Trump's. You can watch that clip. Trump said his longtime friend, just as an individual, not counting his company, made $2.5 billion in one day. Doesn't this mean the recent market collapse was just a way to transfer assets from ordinary people to capitalists and the American government? Now many organizations are saying they'll investigate the US government. I can only laugh. As for no one wanting to buy US bonds, how does the American government plan to solve that? I've said many times that they want to proactively create a market crisis to force money to flow from the stock market to government bonds. They certainly want to do this, but can they succeed? We'll see. When the tariff news broke, US bonds did indeed rise for 2 to 3 days. But those days all showed a pattern of opening high and closing low, with very large trading volumes. What does that mean? It means countless people rushed to buy US bonds initially, but in the end, all those people became bag holders. Why? I've mentioned before that when nobody buys bonds at auctions, Wall Street financial institutions must step in to provide support. So when money floods in to buy bonds and take on inventory, Wall Street players who previously had to hold bonds seized this opportunity to sell off and exit the market. Why? Because they're all stockpiling ammunition, cash, to prepare for buying at the bottom and repositioning their investment strategies. Moreover, if the US government could solve its debt problem, capitalists would lose control over America. The global reaction. That's why we see US bonds initially rising sharply but always opening high and closing low. Most importantly, China and Japan are tacitly acknowledging that they're also selling US bonds to counterattack. Because America is punishing them, they must use US bonds to retaliate. So seriously speaking, Trump's attempt to move money from the stock market to US bonds has essentially failed. Simply put, America's temporary halt to raising tariffs has two reasons. First, it temporarily solves the problem of the government having no spending money, but America got counterattacked. Is this over? Many people are now returning to watch our video from a month ago titled, "Finally, the only wealth opportunity in your lifetime has arrived," commenting that everything has come true. Is that really the case? Let me tell you, this round of tariffs was just a test, just testing the waters. Raising tariffs, like raising interest rates, aims to explode the global economy so American capitalists can go around buying assets everywhere. But the difference is that this tariff increase has become the trigger for a financial crisis. In other words, when interest rates rise, money from around the world flows to America because of its high interest rates. So the entire world sells assets and withdraws money to pour into America. When all countries sell their own assets and currencies to buy dollars and American assets, global assets and currencies depreciate. At this point, American capitalists will sell appreciated assets, then take those valuable dollars to go around the world, scooping up assets when they're being sold off in other countries. This is how they harvested the entire world in round one. How tariffs attack global economies. Did you realize that tariffs are actually a form of economic warfare that affects everyone, not just the targeted countries? Round 2, tariffs, is like directly robbing money from your country. What does that mean? Simply put, let's say today America imposes tariffs on Vietnamese goods. Previously you sold a component for 10 units, now I add 4 units of tax, what can you do? There are 2 choices. First, if you want to maintain your profit, you must raise the component price from 10 to 14 units. This means selling more expensive goods to transfer this tariff burden to consumers. But when you raise prices, your products become more expensive and fewer customers will buy. Then your orders and revenue will severely decline, forcing you to cut staff or even go bankrupt. This will lead to a wave of unemployment in Vietnam. When people have no money, they don't consume, and without consumption, Vietnam's economy will recede. When Vietnam's economy recedes, countries cooperating with you are also affected and recede too. When everyone can't earn dollars, these countries' treasuries will be depleted, currencies will devalue, and exchange rates will plummet. That's option 1. Option 2, America imposes tariffs but you don't raise product prices. This means you must bear all tariff costs yourself. You sell products for 10 units but must pay 4 units in taxes to America. How much profit do you have left? With no profit, you'll lose money and the outcome will be the same. Many Vietnamese businesses won't be able to continue operating and will collapse, also leading to economic recession. When your economy recedes, no one wants to invest in Vietnam anymore. People will exchange Vietnamese currency for US dollars. Then your currency will also devalue. There's another method where many countries will proactively let their currency devalue. For example, if America imposes 40% tariffs but your currency also devalues by 40%, doesn't that balance out? This approach might preserve domestic companies' business, but if your currency devalues by 40%, your national assets have effectively become 40% cheaper. Simply put, when the yen devalues, don't you want to go to Japan? Because Japanese goods suddenly become cheaper. Put simply, regardless of which option you choose, as long as someone imposes tariffs on you, your country will struggle to earn any dollars. Without money, your economy will suffer. With a poor economy, national assets like factories, businesses, and resources will be sold off cheaply. Most importantly, your currency will devalue against the US dollar. At that point, American capitalists can take their appreciating dollars to accumulate goods worldwide, from devaluing currencies to depreciated assets. So when tariffs were just applied, indeed American stocks collapsed. But in reality, the entire global stock market will collapse too. So even though America is also affected, the US government remains determined to do this. Why? Because this is a winner-takes-all game, forcing the entire world to hit bottom together. The long game. In the short term, yes, American citizens will suffer greatly. Rising prices, inflation, poor economy causing unemployment, market collapse. But this isn't just America's problem, it's the whole world's. The entire world's economy will collapse due to tariffs. This mirrors the 2008 financial crisis. But after the 2008 crisis, America was the fastest country to recover, even emerging stronger than before. Why? Because when the global economy collapsed and global assets were sold off, American capitalists bought them at extremely low prices. In other words, though America risks recession, as long as other countries also recede, America isn't really receding at all. Because when others suffer more severely, the world's money will return to invest in America, which is less devastated. So whether through tariffs or interest rate hikes, these are methods to drain US dollars from around the world, causing global assets to be sold cheaply. The difference is that tariffs can trigger a global financial crisis. Because this is essentially a war. Though the explosion point is in America, those killed by the explosion are worldwide. Understand? Many people believe Trump raised tariffs because the whole world is making money from America, because he wants to bring manufacturing back to America. I find that laughable. America only needs to play financial games and print money to easily buy up resources and products made from the sweat and tears of the entire world. And now you're telling me they want Americans to return to being farmers and workers? Would you be willing? Let me tell you, history is repeating itself. Tariffs are a massive wealth transfer. On the surface, these tariffs target other countries, but in reality, they hit ordinary people worldwide. Impact on regular people. Are you starting to see how this affects you personally, no matter where you live or what you do? Because ordinary people must face everything. For instance, if you run a business or invest, your assets will depreciate. And if you do nothing, just diligently go to work, you'll still face inflation. Rising prices, economic recession, currency devaluation. All these things silently transfer your assets into the hands of American capitalists. So if you missed the first stage of positioning, failed to unload high-risk assets, and don't have much cash or defensive assets, in the coming phase you can still choose to ignore it, watching helplessly as capitalists massacre and plunder while your assets evaporate. What can we do? Capitalists like Buffett know and see more than we do, so they can position early. But what advantage do retail investors like us have over them? Flexibility. Buffett might need a whole year to prepare to buy or sell assets, but we only need to wait until money definitively flows in, right at the moment stock prices are about to push up, and it's not too late to enter. In other words, the trend is created by the big players, and we just need to follow the trend to make money and withdraw. And then the crucial point returns: tariffs are also a bargaining chip the US government uses in international negotiations. If your country doesn't want to be tariffed, you must obey America. Simply put, you must buy US government bonds. If you resist, your national assets will be sold off cheaply to American capitalists. The capitalist strategy. Because currently, whether it's Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, or us, everyone is holding large amounts of cash waiting to buy cheap goods. Therefore, this round of tariffs is just like a probe to see which countries sink, which float, who resists, who obediently buys US bonds. And the result is that many countries, despite declaring they would resist, ultimately still had to sell US bonds, causing US bond values to drop 8%. The US dollar continues to devalue, and capital flows out of America. This is also why in previous videos I never encouraged people to buy long-term US bonds. Late last year, I started converting US dollars to gold and Japanese yen. So when the global stock market collapsed, investors worldwide didn't transfer money to America but fled from America. What does this mean? It means when the entire world must choose between buying US bonds or facing a financial crisis, they chose the financial crisis. In other words, this time America raising tariffs on the whole world may have reached a point of no return. Because now American stocks, currency, and bonds are all in free fall. Save the stock market and you can't save the dollar, save the dollar and you can't save the bonds. Most importantly, the Federal Reserve and professional capitalists aren't stepping in to help. The reason? Watch my previous video. This is the core. If all three markets die and can't be saved, the American government has only one option: rebirth through fire. Simply put, trigger a financial crisis to make the entire world bear the consequences for them. Understanding the current stage. So what exactly is happening in the markets right now, and how does it affect your investments? Therefore, we must understand what stage we're in and why American stocks are falling so quickly this time. Very simple. Today I buy an American stock for $100, then it rises to $200. I want to buy more but have no money. What to do? I take that $200 stock to the bank, use it as collateral, and borrow $150. Then I use that $150 to buy more stock. But because America raised tariffs, the market collapses, and the bank demands I return the $150 immediately. If not, they'll sell all my stocks. If I don't want my stocks sold, I must return $150. But I don't have $150 in hand. If I did, I wouldn't have borrowed from the bank. So I cannot repay, and the bank must sell my stocks. And if many people are like me and cannot repay debts on time, a large number of stocks will be dumped on the stock market regardless of price. That's why American stocks collapsed this time. So if I don't want to witness the situation, I must sell other assets I'm holding. For example, European stocks, Japanese stocks, crude oil, Bitcoin, and so on. I'll sell all those assets to get cash, then use that cash to repay the bank. Simply put, sell assets to get money to return to the bank. Because right now everyone needs money, not goods anymore. To understand more simply, when banks demand debt repayment or call for margin, it means banks are reclaiming the US dollars they previously pumped into the market. And this will cause a crisis, a global liquidity squeeze. Many people sell assets but very few have money to buy back. So assets simply cannot be sold. And this might just be the beginning. The Fed's role and choices. To solve this liquidity crisis requires rebalancing money and assets in the market. The solution is very simple. I mentioned it in a previous video. The only way is for the Federal Reserve to step in, meaning expand its balance sheet and print more money. And the Fed has two choices. The first is to intervene right now but maintain current high interest rates and still pump money into the market. This means they won't let the American stock market collapse too severely. They'll print money to ensure the market has enough dollars to continue functioning. But simultaneously, the US government must pay very high interest rates. In this scenario, the stock market may recover slightly but won't have any major explosion, perhaps even continuing to drop long-term after a brief recovery. The second option, which I think is more likely because the Fed chose this path in both 2008 and 2020, is to wait until the financial crisis or market crash becomes more severe before acting. Then they'll print unlimited money and use newly printed money to lend to American capitalist corporations at 0% interest. This approach actually aligns with the interests of the capitalists behind the Fed and the US government. Because, as I said, if the US government continues using tariffs to trigger a global financial crisis, as long as the global economy is worse than America's, America will become the best country, a safe haven for global capital during crisis times. Then US bonds will have buyers again. For the conglomerate tycoons behind the Fed, when the world collapses and global assets are sold dirt cheap, they simply need to turn on the money printer, borrow money at 0% interest, and they can accumulate all the cheap assets globally. Thus, American stocks and global assets will return to American capitalist corporations. Simultaneously, America solves the problem of no one buying bonds, and the interest they must pay instantly decreases dramatically thanks to 0% interest rates. My strategy and advice. So what should you be doing right now to protect yourself and potentially profit from this coming crisis? That's why since last year I've thought that triggering a financial crisis to return to 0% interest rates and expand the balance sheet is the more likely possibility. And this is precisely why Buffett sold stocks of American banks. Because when a financial crisis occurs, everyone can't repay bank debts, causing banks to immediately devalue severely. And if you're observant, you've surely realized when is the opportunity for us to enter the market and catch the bottom. First, that time is not now because stock prices and asset types can still surge just because of one statement from the US government, or the market could collapse severely. If you enter the market right now, the money you earn would just be quick money, not big money. Most importantly, you might make money today but lose again tomorrow. You might have to cut losses right after buying, having to frequently stop losses. Therefore, this isn't the appropriate time for short-term investment or guerrilla trading. So we choose to temporarily hibernate. This means right now what we care about isn't which assets will appreciate, but which assets can prevent our assets from devaluing. For that reason, since last year we've started converting dollars to gold and Japanese yen, and now we're even more committed to continuing to hold until when? Before that, we tried short-term shorting with Tesla stocks, and the results were quite good. But we emphasize that was just an experiment. The real shorting time will be when the Federal Reserve or US government uses tariffs to spark a financial crisis causing American stocks to collapse comprehensively. At that point, we'll aggressively short, and when the Fed begins expanding its balance sheet and pumping out money, we'll gradually follow the trend and catch the bottom. That's our major positioning direction. At the same time, I also want to share that in 2008, many people were just workers, construction laborers, or bussing tables at illegal restaurants. But now many of them have become wealthy seniors beside me. After 2008, class became fixed. Those who once bussed tables now don't need to do anything. The assets in their hands generate more money every month, even every hour, than many people can earn in a lifetime. As for me, I was born late, too young then, and couldn't seize that opportunity. But this time the opportunity is coming, and I've matured. Importantly, if it truly comes, I'm already prepared, I've rolled up my sleeves. And if this opportunity doesn't come, I won't lose anything, right? I'll just reposition from the beginning. So if you don't want to miss the upcoming market opportunity, what you need to do is prepare in advance. First, align your perspective with mine, grasp the investment mindset and methods I share, then make them your own. Don't wait until that moment to ask, should I enter now? Can I still buy this asset? I'm stuck with losses now, what should I do? Because once the opportunity passes, who knows how many more years you'll have to wait. The situation ahead will certainly become increasingly volatile. But due to time constraints, I'll end here today. I share free knowledge about becoming wealthy, being an entrepreneur, an investor, and achieving financial freedom. If you don't want to miss out, follow my channel, turn on notifications, and share this video widely. I sincerely wish all brothers and sisters who have liked this video to achieve financial freedom soon. If you found just 1 or 2 useful sentences in today's video to help you live better, then I'm already satisfied.